Hey everybody, and welcome to the 90-minute art challenge with me, Bobby Chu, and my co-host Masei Seki, and the wonderful, the amazing Jonathan Hardesty. So I wanted to first do a little housekeeping here. Let's see what today's challenge is. Okay, so first, let's go to this. Boom. So this is the Tumblr page. All you need to do is go to tumblr.com, search for 90min art challenge, and you could find our account here. This is today's challenge. And let me explain a little bit about today's challenge. Try out Huevember. This was actually introduced to me by Masei Seki. The challenge is using a limited color palette. Okay, so you can use anything between these hues and nothing beyond these hues. Okay, so no blues, no greens, no purples, things like that. You can change the saturation, you can change the value, but you can't go beyond this range. So this was a really interesting challenge because it's like, how do you get that blue? And you'll see how we do it. One super simple hint is if you make everything kind of orangey or yellowy and then you have a really gray, that will feel naturally more blue, more cool. Okay, so this is a really tough challenge. And the other thing I want to ask is, where's everybody from? Love to give some shout outs there. There's always people from everywhere. I could see Carlos Rue over there. I believe Carlos is from Brazil, and we have Israel, Noah in there, Gartry, Patricia from the Netherlands, all sorts of places. Love to see. Also, I want to show the entries. Okay, so when you're done your entry, you can hashtag it 90minute art challenge, and then we can find it. All the hashtags have been activated again, by the way, so that's pretty awesome. Let's check out some of the other entries here. So we got this one, beautiful. This one, awesome. This one as well. Oh, these are all fantastic. More and more this week. This was awesome too. You guys all set there? Oh, okay. Great. So I'm going to unmute y'all. And just going through a bunch of the entries here from last week. This one, nicely simplified. I like how they did the scales here. Great job, Nat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? And a couple others that are very representational of the subject. I love this one because you could see Jamalia really put in the effort doing this study a bunch of times. That's how you get every last drop of knowledge from studies.
Totally.
Right? Little boxer, that was
That's
funny.
cute.
Very cute. Little,
Aww.
what are they called? Chibi versions?
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
Right? This was great. CJ Ellison is gonna be
Nice.
one of our guest artists coming up, and she's gonna be painting with us, Masei.
Oh, that's
Nice.
awesome.
So that's gonna be
That's
cool.
exciting.
That's really
And
fun.
and I discovered her, of course, through social media, through doing these streams and such.
Oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
So that's another bonus of doing these little events with us. And you can see this time, everybody, this time the screen is divided into four, right?
Oh
So we
yeah.
have the subject in the corner, and then we have Jonathan. You can see his what color is that? That's almost teal. It's kind of like a greenish teal. He's in the upper top corner. Masei is in the lower left corner. And where am I? Oh, there I am. I drop in already. Come on, Bobby. Let's get with it. Let's use our brain.
I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking you were starting systematically, like putting the. I was actually gonna be like, Look at me. Look at this. The story of me is just starting like being joking around and not doing the right thing.
No, we keep it
Looking great
real, right? We
already.
keep it real. We do not edit this video at all. We just went
I love it.
straight.
Yeah.
Now, John, you're getting ahead pretty quick right there.
Yeah. 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 I
Now,
was done. Just right then. This is version 2.
now,
Come on.
John,
Yeah, yeah,
with every challenge that we do, we bring our challenges to the amazing, the highly respected Wizard Bunny to see how the challenges stack up. So I think it's time to go to the Wizard Bunny and see what he
Come
thinks of
on.
our challenge.
Come on, Wizard Bunny. Come on.
You summon me for this? Don't you know that dogs hate bunnies? I give a challenge of 4.
Ouch. Ouch.
Is that out of 10?
That is out of 10. You
Come
know,
on.
the Wizard Bunny can be very particular sometimes. Not every time do you understand its logic, however.
It's kind of like the secret of Nim, when they visit the old owl. He's just, there's a little bit of fear there. There's a little bit of,
Yes.
awe and respect. And
Wizard
but then
Bunny always
ultimately-
has a plan for us, though. We can
Yeah,
trust in
that's
the
right.
Wizard
Yeah.
Bunny.
Oh, he has a big picture in his mind.
I kind of feel like it's given us the lower ranking sometimes to really harden our passion for art that's self-motivated. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. Did you
Yeah.
guys? What movie was that where the kid wanted to be like a world-class drummer, and that guy's just railing on
Oh,
him?
Whiplash?
Oh,
Yeah, Whiplash. It's like
Whiplash,
Whiplash. He's
yeah.
like the teacher in Whiplash. He's just like I'm gonna whip you into shape. None of this like
Yeah.
fluffy. You can do it. It's like
Hardcore.
yeah, I like it. I
Yeah.
prefer that actually.
Just to give some
Mhm.
shouts out now, we got India in here, Czech, Israel, like I said, France, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Poland, Texas, Dominican Republic, Ohio, the Midwest, Russia, Germany, Taiwan, Brazil, all over the place, Argentina, New Jersey, Belgium, any other good ones here? Oh,
Nice.
it just goes on. That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Also, many of these people are joining in our Discord. Okay, so I'm going to just show what the Discord looks like. You can see the Discord channel in the lower third of the screen there. That's how you get to it. But this is what it kind of looks like here. So we can see that there's just a ton of people. Just a ton of people all studying together every week, all the time. And we can also see a few people streaming, which is really, really cool to
Nice.
see that. And they're all studying together, and that's
Hey.
what it's about. That's what it's all about.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's gonna be cool. We'll dip back into there throughout the stream.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Now,
cool.
some other things I want to mention here. What is this program? It's Magma Studio. It's a free drawing program, free painting program. Now, for weeks, Masay and we've been using the prototype custom brushes on the side over there. Well, I'm happy to announce that now you can also get those
Nice.
sweet custom brushes with
Yay.
the Pro Plan on Magma.
Nice.
We gotta eat somehow, people. But this
Yeah.
wonderful subscription helps to support more and more of the program, because, like John, you were using the free program. You're using the free version of this
That's right.
program.
That's
right?
right.
And
Which is
to-
still really good.
Exactly. And I use the free version of the program. A lot of times I don't use the custom brushes just to really challenge myself. And you can still make extremely professional work.
Totally.
Now,
Totally.
what do you get with this, what do you get with the subscription? Okay, so I just want to mention what you get with the subscription. The programmers actually sent me this. Maybe I'll just put it on screen here. Or, okay. You probably want to just double check, by the way. There's so much going on these days. I just want to put that out there. You might want to just double check, but it's pretty much, this is the pro version. Okay, so pro version is for commercial use. You can use it to do things commercially. You also have password protected drawings, so nobody magma bombs your board.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I have to say, I've had a great time magma bombing lots of people's boards throughout Lightbox. So if you do want to let it open, that's always good too. And you can get fun guests.
I'm totally gonna do that now. I haven't had the idea to do that. I'm totally gonna do that now.
It's fun. Texture brushes. You get the texture brushes that I helped create. Many of those texture brushes. You can have an extra large canvas. You can export PSD and layered images. You can have up to 5 concurrent boards drawing and painting at the same time. You can keep your inactive drawings forever, and up to 5 gigs of storage, access to new features. Now this is important because this means as we go forward, you get all the new updates, right? You get all the new updates. Oh, shoot. Just put our screens on blast right there. But yeah, you get all the new updates as we progress and develop the app. So that's going to be awesome. Now let's talk a little bit about the painting here, shall we? Before we get too far. We've all started completely different.
I know, it's amazing.
Very
It's
different,
amazing.
yeah.
I was thinking that at the time too. I was thinking, like, I was looking at mine and I was looking at yours, and I didn't actually know how I was going to start it. I was like, how should I start this? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm just like, whenever I do something fun like this, I like just putting strokes down, man. I'm like just rolling with it. So like, but when I was looking at both at the time, I was thinking, this is why art is so awesome, because you just see how people start differently and their different processes, and it's what is like the addictive part of art for me, you know, is that like seeing different people do different things.
Yeah.
My idea of starting off yellow, like making that wall yellow, was because I really, really wanted to see how blue I can get that little sliver of blue, and how purple I could get those glasses feeling.
Right.
Right? So just ramp up everything really, really warm.
Yeah.
But I slipped as I was progressing through this painting, and I forgot about that.
Well, it's so easy to forget about that too. Like, gosh, it's so hard to do it. But this challenge though of staying within that color range, I really like. It's super cool, and it forces you to think a little bit differently. Like I always like things that take me out of the default. But I think going back to what you were saying, when you can't just pick the color you want and do it, it's like another thing that comes up in your brain. So it's totally easy to lose track of everything else because you've changed a variable, you know. It's like if you're used to driving a car or whatever, and all of a sudden the shifter's on the other side or something, it's much easier to crash or whatever, you know, because it's just, there's that one variable that changes, and it's good. It's a good thing, but it's very easy to lose track.
Yeah, you definitely have to change a gear in your mind
Right.
to like really focus on that.
That's totally why I love this exercise, because it's so bloody hard. Like if I was Bunny Wizard, I would have gave this a 9 or a 10, I think, like just for me anyways, because I'm not used to doing this exercise really.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
have a
Bunny
limited
Wizard's
palette.
throwing a
Yeah.
shade, man. Throwing a shade, making it a 4.
So you guys are hooked up with the Discord? Maybe we could jump
Yeah.
over in there.
So we
Okay,
mute our
so-
mics here, right? And then go over there, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's mute our mics here and then unmute over at Discord.
Gotcha.
All right. All right, cool. So now we're on Discord.
Hello.
What's up, everybody?
All right. So also I want to mention little bit more housekeeping here. There is a promo code, by the way. There is a promo code for this Magma Studio Pro Plan. LBX Discord. That's the promo code. LBX Discord saves you approximately 10% on the subscription. All right, and overall, it's a pretty decent price too. I feel so. Hopefully, everybody can take advantage. The promo code ends midnight today, Eastern time, I believe. So not much time. All right. The other thing I want to mention here is, sorry for just two other things, okay? Three other things. One is follow us, okay? Instagram, Digital Bobber. Then we got Masei Seki over there and John Hardesty. You can follow us on Instagram. And as well, if you look way over there, you can see questions. Go to slido.com, #ChewStream to ask your questions. Okay, and then we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. And last thing I wanted to mention was I just noticed my class in November, my digital painting class in November is already full. We are registering for like January, February or something like that. I teach on Schoolism. John teaches on Schoolism as well. He teaches realistic essentials of realism. I almost messed that up.
That's all right. That's good.
Essentials of realism and how to paint textures, understanding textures with Jonathan Hardesty. Two awesome courses. We should do some of those lessons in here one day.
Maybe a third possibly coming.
Oh,
we'll see.
Oh, snap.
I have ideas. I have ideas, guys. I have ideas. So.
You would be so great with one of these workouts.
That's what I'm thinking, man. Look behind me, guys. Look behind me. Can you see that? It's very small, I know.
Little
but
tiny
if you could,
weights, but they're much bigger in person.
Yeah. No, they're not. No, but it's the workout theme, you know? Let's get our workout in. Yeah, for real. I would love to do that.
That's exactly how it feels. You know, it's interesting when it's like none of your muscles feel tired, but your brain feels tired.
Yeah.
Right? When you really, really do like an artistic workout and you're doing things that you're not so used to anymore, it's a very interesting feeling.
It is. It is. I've gotten addicted to that too. I love that.
I was just going to say, I kind of dig it. I kind of dig it.
Yeah. In the beginning, it's definitely really hard if you're not used to it.
Yes.
And then like working out with your body, it's like you feel the muscle pains, like aching, soaring. But then after a while, you kind of like, get addicted and your body's like craving it.
Oh, that's the
I'm like that with
thing
everything. Yeah, I'm like that. I want to jump in with, like, I'm scared of sharks. So I'm like, I want to jump in with sharks and like, I want to hold spiders in my hand and like, I like putting myself in uncomfortable situations. I like it.
That's pretty extreme. The whole spider.
I know. But I was scared of spiders. But then there was a huge one that was really cool looking on my back porch, and it just started building huge webs. It's like a garden spider, so they're yellow and black and huge. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna conquer this. So I would go up to it every day that I saw it, and I would touch its back, and touch its back, and touch its back. And then now I'm not. I really am not. I'm like, oh, you know, it's not. And I have a little jumping spider that goes around my studio, and I just let him crawl on my like Wacom and stuff. And it's not bad. I've kind of gotten over it. But if there was like 100, I'd freak out. But
that's so funny.
I think the big ones would, like the tarantula looking ones, might freak me out a little bit more.
Yeah, that they just look like they could bite the crap out of you, you know.
Hey, before we go on any further, can we talk about the painting just slightly? You can see that, Masei, you're using such a pink, such a nice peachy pink tone there, and that's really helping to get those glasses to feel more like the color.
I think from my previous studies, I always realized like my colors are super desaturated by the end. So I think the issue was like I always started desaturated, so I just make it even more desaturated as I go. So that's kind of the reason why mine looks very different from everyone else's.
I like it though. Yeah, starting from like that mid range and making it super colorful is like that's really good. Yeah, I like that, and yeah, like you said, it puts your head in the right place. You can
Mhm.
get the color rocking from the beginning.
And I
Now I
think
understand. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the reason why I went that saturated was because I peeked over at Jonathan's painting and saw how dark and saturated his shadow side was. So that's when I like knocked it down a bit. So
Interesting.
thanks, John.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. I know. Like I said, I was feeling shame the whole time because I was like, look at my finger painting drawing, and I'm like, you guys are so like on track already drawing wise. I'm like, do to do. I'm
Nah.
like, kid with finger paints, like moving stuff around.
Well, also, you've used Magma like probably less than 5 times in your life, so it is pretty amazing how quick you're adapting.
Well,
Hmm.
that I think that's I gotta be honest. I think that's a testament to how you made it because I could just jump right in and do it. So
Well, yeah, the programmers for sure, um, they always outdo themselves.
totally,
It is really neat.
totally.
It's pretty much like almost like a 15 minute learning curve, and then you're
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
Now
And
I
of course, the
un
principles don't change. You know, if painting principles of painting don't change, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
You see how like I feel like my glasses there, they do kind of feel purpley,
totally.
right? And I do remember what happened as well. Like I did that dog, I was like, yes, I like how that dog started. It took me about 3 seconds. And then this dude, and I'm using these saturated colors, I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't get what like I don't get how this is gonna turn into something that looks like what I want it to look. So I think you ever get that moment in your painting, like, or at least before, where you're painting those initial steps and it's so crude and so basic, kind of, that you're wondering, like, is this gonna actually turn out? You know what I mean? Am I making
Yeah.
sense?
No, I have. So this is this is my cycle. My cycle is really excited about something, then I start it, and I'm like, yes, this is locking into place. And then I like walk away, and I get like tea or something, and I come back, I'm like, this looks horrible. And then I start fixing things, but then like halfway through, I'll be like, oh, this looks pretty good. But then a little bit past halfway, I'm like, this isn't gonna work. This is and like I have this moment where I'm like, I need to throw away this painting. Like this isn't gonna work. And I'm like, and so then I persist to the end. Then when I'm getting towards the end, I'm like, yeah, this is really good. And then a week after I make it, I hate it and I never want to look at it again. So that's my process.
But how many times do
Constant
you
like
actually
this.
throw away the painting?
Well, it depends. I actually probably do that more than some people. So like my oil paintings, I would say probably 35% or 40% I just chuck. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and
Wow.
this is
like
why, because
finished pieces
not like, well, it
or
would be
like in
like,
work in
yeah, like
progress.
75, 80%. And what I'll do is I just like, I'll scavenge or I'll scrape it and then I'll reuse the canvas or whatever. But because for me, like, so there's two things, like it's, if I get to that point and that happens, it's usually either I flubbed the execution or there was something that I didn't plan right for in the beginning. Like I had an oversight in the planning and didn't, or I'm very open to like changing mid process. Like I'm very open to that. So sometimes I will sort of follow that thread and it doesn't quite work out the way I like to. I like to take risks though. Like if there's an area that's fully painted and I'm like, well, I'm going to put something over top of this. And I know if I put this stroke and it's wet over wet and I'm going to have to redo the entire area, I'll do it anyways. And, because I want somebody who knows to go up to the painting later and be like, he did that while he was over top of it. And when it works, it's like, yes, but because of that nature of me being a little bit more risky, I think like with I don't even know if people could pick that up in the paintings, but like because of me being a little bit more like that, it ends up having a little bit less of a consistent, outcome. So I'm okay with that. But the whole thing is I always would tell my students like, look, when you make a painting and you want to charge like $5,000 or $10,000 for this painting or something, I'm like, is somebody going to pay that? And if I look at it and I feel like no, then I'm like, psh, I just toss it, you know? So there's no point. I used to, when I was first starting out, like just be like, well, I worked hard on this painting and stuff like that, but it wasn't that. It would be like a painting I was okay with, and they would never sell, you know, because they just weren't good, you know, and they weren't my best. And I think people could almost like sense that, you know, even if they didn't know art. But, you know, when you really pour yourself into something and it's really, you feel, at least at that time, you feel good about it, it's usually better. But I don't know.
Man,
I throw away a lot.
I feel like traditional painting comes with so much more regret than digital painting, just because there's only one.
Yeah.
You know,
It does.
and there's like no, you know, if you undo, you can't redo. There's no redo button.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So lots of times I'll just be like, I hope nobody buys this painting because I love it so much.
Right.
And then maybe they do, and then I'm like, you know, then I go through mixed emotions. Like, yes, and man, but it's okay, Bobby, it's okay, don't worry. You know, and then there's like when it doesn't sell and you're like, yes, and then that yes is much smaller and they're overshadowing like, what was wrong
Less
with it?
excited,
Why
yes.
didn't anybody
Yeah.
like it, you know?
It's a roller coaster of emotion for
Yeah.
sure. Especially when it's your own art and it's an
Yeah.
original. It's like a piece of you going away. But then
Yeah.
if you want it to go to a nice home, but then at the same time, like you want to like cradle it and keep it, you know, baby it forever.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
this
But-
is time for 90-minute art challenge confessions, because about like 7 years ago
you got to do that confessions again, Bob.
because
Sounds
about
good.
like I think like 7 years ago I had a gallery show in Paris, and
Nice. You can just stop there, man. Just stop there. That's
well,
good.
it's hustling and bustling, it's cool, you know, the opening is cool, and then all of a sudden everybody just starts quieting down in one side of the room. And I, you know, I could feel the hairs going up on my neck, and I turn around and it's Glenn Keane, right? And
Gosh.
he's at the thing, he's at the gallery show, and he's looking at this painting that I really hoped nobody would buy because I really liked that painting as this big wise old tree and this little girl is trying to gift the tree an apple. And to me that meant like gifts, it's far more important what the intention is rather than the gift itself. Anyways, so I like this painting. I see Glenn Keane looking at it intensely and just staying there for a good long time. And then the gallery owner, she was like, yeah, I think he's interested in it. And he didn't take it. You know, and it was like that feeling that we were talking about just now, this huge mix of feelings, right?
Totally.
And as he's watching it, as he's looking at it, my like, oh, I hope nobody buys it, that voice starts shrinking dramatically, and the other one starts to raise dramatically.
That's right.
It's such a funny
I got a funny story about Glenn Keane too. Okay, so he's like a friend of my wife's family, kind of. Like my father-in-law like could probably call him and he would talk to him or whatever. So when I first started, he hasn't talked to him for a long time, but at the time when I was first starting out in Texas, so I was like, I had just gotten out of the atelier, and I really, like at that time I had really just been doing fine art, right? So everybody would always come up to me and say, and this is going to sound crazy to some people that I didn't know who Glenn Keane was, but remember I started at 21. I hadn't done anything in art at all. So I was like, I had to learn everything new as it came. So I didn't know. This was like the first like couple or like year and a half or first year I was drawing or something. And so he comes up to me, he's like, hey, he said, there's this guy that, you know, gave a big donation or whatever. And or something like that. I can't remember what it was, or he was connected with the charity in some way. And he said, you know, you should meet him. You know, he's really good. His name's Glenn Keane. And I had so many people telling me at the time, you should meet this guy and you should do, like, my cousin's an artist, my, you know, nephew's an artist. And then you go see it and they're just, it's, I mean, no offense that, you know, it's just not good, you know. And I knew it wasn't good. So I just kind of dismissed it. And I was like, well, I said, I'm busy. I'm doing this and that. And I kind of dismissed it. I didn't even like really look into it. And then like a couple of years later, I was like, oh no. I totally could have like at the beginning stages of my career met. And if I would have met him and seen his work, I would have been like, oh crap. Like, you know, so I know it sounds funny. Everybody's like, I can't believe you didn't know Glenn Keane. But like, I was into music, man. I was like in a rock band and doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I decided to be an artist. And so I had no idea like about anything, you know? So it's that's like a story of shame for me. I'm like, maybe I can work it out to meet him again sometime. And this time I'll know, you know, I'll know more. So
Yeah.
Isn't that funny though?
It's like kicking
Gosh,
yourself.
so dumb. So dumb. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's a big one. That's a big
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Bail.
It's all good. Yeah. I could have worked a lot more on the upcoming Ghostbusters movie, which,
Oh, really?
yeah, you know, like the other day I was just talking to somebody, just going, oh yeah, we're sharing what was the very first thing that you remember fan arting about. And for me, it was freaking Ghostbusters, and I forgot
That's
all
awesome.
about it. And so I believe this was like last year I got to work on Ghostbusters, the upcoming Ghostbusters with Jason
Nice.
Reitman. I feel like it's going to be amazing. I really do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited just to see it, even if I didn't work on it. But I didn't get to work on it very long because I just kept saying, "Oh, I can't do this many hours. I can only do this. I could, you know, it's like my schedule is so tight now. I couldn't really do anything." But maybe if I went back to that moment, I would have been like, "Heck yeah! Okay, let me drop this. Let me drop this. Let me drop this," and just hide in a cave and work on Ghostbusters.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I know it's always hard though. Like you know, everybody says hindsight is 2020. You know,
Yeah.
so it's hard. Like you know, you're like, and that was the same thing with me with the Glenn Keane thing. Is like I had heard 6,000 suggestions about what I should do art wise from everybody. So I just, you know, and you guys know how it is. Like, like you should come do this, and then I would go to a lot of them, and it was like this community art thing, and nobody understood what I was doing, and so I eventually just started like saying no to everyone, you know, on everything, which was, you know, unfortunate, but.
I actually remember like an even worse regret. You know, I don't feel like everything worked out great, but there were times where like I really regretted this, and that was when we're working on Alice in Wonderland for Tim Burton. It's the very first of the long slew of classic animated Disney films made into live action, and it's with Tim Burton, and there's like an unprecedented amount of budget for this film, and it's Tim Burton. And so my production designer asks Kay and I, hey, do you want to move and work with us on location? And we said no. You know, I said no because I was like, I'm teaching at Sheridan College, and these students are going to graduate, and I can't leave halfway through the semester. Can we stay in Toronto and keep working here? Which, in hindsight, I feel like the students, I don't think they would have really cared. I think they would have understood and just like been like, yeah, you should totally do that. I didn't, but our buddy Michael Kutch did, and he went to London, and he worked in Tim Burton's studio there, and
That's awesome.
Tim bought that studio from Arthur Rackham.
Oh no, you're kidding me.
Yes, I'm not joking at all. It was Arthur
Oh my
Rackham's
God.
studio, who is one of the most, if not the most, known for Alice in Wonderland
Right.
drawings.
I saw that. I saw that
Right?
in person. The like two paintings from it. You know the one where well there's a bunch of them, but I have to send you those because I have like super high res shots of it because it was at this college, and my brother and I saw it was like I can't remember. It was like a Russian sounding name for the collection or whatever. But we saw that there was this showing at this college, and we were like, this illustration show. So we went down. No one's in there. It's just like this room that's set up really cool. Has like the original, like a lot of the illustrators had like the original books, like with their covers on it and stuff like that from like 1950, 60, whatever. And his stuff was in the corner. I was like, what? And so I literally had my camera with me, and I set up a tripod, I think. And I said, I had my tripods in the car. So I went and got my tripod. No one's in there. No one's saying anything. And I was like, I'm never going to sell these. I'm like, I'm not going to, but I just going to. And so I just like, I went and took a picture of, there were Frazettas. It was like, I just took a long exposure, like shot of each one. It was awesome. And that painting, that Rackham, man, the Alice in Wonderland stuff is so, it reminded me of like Bouguereau. Like it was so like perfectly executed, and they're tiny, and it's so subtle. Like the control is so subtle. It was amazing. It was so good.
Oh
really
my
good.
God. Well, you know, so what I was told was that Tim Burton has a lot of his art collection in this studio.
Ah,
Yeah, that you wouldn't be able
that's
to
awesome.
see. That
That's
you
right.
wouldn't be able, and you'd be able to work in front of these beautiful paintings, all, you know, all
Totally.
day. Uh, you know, who knows what. And I heard that the studio, there's so many parts about the studio that was hand designed, crafted by Arthur Rackham himself, like the
Oh my
fireplace and
gosh,
stuff
come
like that.
on.
And you could just like lean on the fireplace, take your little coffee, have a little break, just chilling out and just looking and absorbing. That would have been
That's awesome.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
like Muka's studio. Like Muka's studio was like this Art Nouveau, like Wonderland, like his studio too. I don't know if you've ever seen it. He had a jewelry store too. It was crazy there. I'd like to see his studio too. But
Now
That's
we'll
it's
take
cool.
awesome.
an older question from last time. There's just a couple that I wanted to get to, and then maybe we could hop into some Discord stuff. Okay, so this person is saying, um, do you have any advice on how to start a visual development personal project? And feeling guilty for taking breaks and not drawing. So two questions, right? How do you kind of stop yourself from the guilt of not doing anything, you know, taking breaks? And how do you start a visual development personal project?
Yeah, the guilt, I think, like you have to realize that you can't, if you're only doing, you have to build into yourself. It's like a business never trying to grow. It just keeps doing what it just does, you know. And so some guy's making hamburgers, right? And he's just like, well, that's just what I do. That's all I do. Sometimes that's fine, but you know, it's if you're wanting to grow and change your menu and do things like that, and wanting to get better and I don't know. I think that's a part of it. So I'm sure chefs probably feel the same in restaurants. Like people just want what they've been giving them, and they want the same thing. But your restaurant will it'll slowly the people will slowly stop coming because they'll get bored of it. They've had your lasagna or whatever for like 50,000 times, and so maybe some people will stay, but it's not going to be ultimately fulfilling for you, and you won't hit that like next level. So I think don't feel guilty about pouring into your business. Basically, your business is you. So don't feel guilty about getting better and pursuing something, because it's so funny because I you know, I remember all the guys at Massive Black talking about this, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Bobby, but like the things that they do that were their personal work are the things that ended up turning into something that sort of at least took them to a higher level or a different direction, or added to their growth as an artist like immensely. So I feel like you need that. You have to have that. I feel like, I don't know. What do you think?
Do you want to do you want to
Oh no,
go?
you can go. You
Okay,
can go, Bob.
well, visual development personal project. I think with those, it's really about doing it as kind of as accurately as possible to being on a project. right? So don't skip any steps. Feel like you need to communicate some sketches to the director so that you will stop at the sketch, and then you'll think about it, you'll look at it, and then you'll create the final instead of just continuously painting on your sketch until it's finished, because that's what we can do in Photoshop, right? And then we lose that initial idea, because we want to show that as well. Also, to when you're working on a project, we spend a lot of time thinking about the idea, getting inspired, collecting reference, which many times with personal projects we might not spend nearly as much time, right? And if this personal project is supposed to help you get projects to work on, official projects through visual development, then by doing this, by taking it as seriously as possible, will really heighten your chances, I feel. You know what I love, and I'm sure you guys probably all love this, there's certain kind of anal tendencies that people do, especially with art, just so careful, so like precise, so much care, takes so much whatever, so much effort. We greatly appreciate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the case in point for all you that are not painters, that are not artists out there. You ever seen any of those videos where there's this person and she's making all these miniature versions of something for maybe a hamster, right? And sets up the table, makes a little tiny sandwich, takes a little tiny pan to cook a little tiny egg and all that stuff. And you're just like, the effort that this person is putting in, wow. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with art, right? Like if you can imagine, wow, this person did this, and this just for this one image. I like that. That person is crazy, I don't know what other word to call it except for just anal at the process.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. You see that a lot with like car builders. So my son's big into cars. So guys will make custom cars and stuff, and it's you'll see somebody come along and they'll open it up and they'll be like look at these door hinges or something. They're looking at the door hinge. The door hinge is custom, and they put it in, ground it down on something and made it whatever the theme is for the car. They made that a part of the theme somehow, and it's really interesting. Yeah, it's just you have that appreciation for it, and you could just same thing with guitars too. I've seen guitar builders and they just have that, man, just down to I saw this one guy trying to get the neck straight, and it was he had this, whatever this scientific tool was, and it was he was really frustrated because it was 0.001 off of what, and so he was sitting there sanding what, I mean, I don't remember exactly what he was doing, but it was just crazy to see him. He's getting it perfect, just perfect. So it's just such a difference. Yeah, you're right. And everybody looks at that. All the people that are looking at that video on YouTube are not guitar players. People are looking at that. They just appreciate it because it's just great to see somebody so passionate. I love that.
I remember seeing this one workshop where it was Mike Yamada doing some demo, right? And he's really good. He does a really great workshop in general, but there's this one sliver of the workshop where he's doing this, just a brush stroke, and he does it about 10-15 times, undoes it and then does it again. No, and everybody's like, that one looked pretty good. Oh, okay. No. And it was interesting to watch him do that because he is just so methodical, so kind of precise with exactly what he wants, that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an instant appreciation.
It's the same for traditional painters sometimes, when especially the oil painters who stare at the canvas for 10 minutes and then they finally put a brushstroke. You're like, oh wow, that took a long time, but you appreciate that.
That's like Nathan Fowkes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh really?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know.
like,
I was gonna say, show it, show it.
No, I don't have
you're not
anything.
in the
Yeah,
studio.
I'm not in the studio, but
Oh, okay. You had that one, that goose painting or something, right?
yeah, I have a duck painting which he did
Duck.
like in
Yeah.
like 20 brush strokes or something. It's like insane. Um, you know, Missy and I, we had Wouter Tulp on here the other time, and he was telling us about going to a Jeremy Lipking workshop. Remember this, Missy? Where he was saying for the first half an hour or so, and Wouter loved the workshop,
Yeah,
but he was saying some people didn't really appreciate it or didn't
right.
love it
I've heard this about his workshop. I've heard this. Yeah.
because Jeremy Lipking, from what Wouter said, stared at the model for a good almost half an hour before he even started. Right? And for
Totally.
me, I think for the more mature artists, maybe we're gonna be more okay with that. Because we'll
Right.
be interested in that. Like, wow, he's
Right.
still staring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just came back with the coffee. It's still staring. Like that's very interesting. Maybe I should stare more. Um,
Totally.
yeah, that was a really funny conversation because I was just like, what does the model feel at this point? If you were Jeremy Lipking's model, oh my gosh. But I'm just
It's like,
joking.
why am I here?
Yeah, I'm just joking.
I think he was, I think that he probably does that, but I also think it's a little bit like the gunslinger who's really, really capable. And he's like in the movie, like smoking his cigarette, and the guy's running at him, and it's like the last second, like, whoosh, taking it out and doing it. So I think there's a little bit of showmanship there too, because I mean, he can problem solve pretty quickly and stuff. So it is true, but I think there's a little bit of my guess would be that because he's done so many figurative things, like, and in a demo like that, he's gonna kind of understand what the lighting is gonna be doing. So, but hey, you got to give him credit. It's like he's like, I don't need these 30 minutes. I'll just observe, like.
Mhm.
But I do think though, like, that's what it's funny. I took a workshop with William Whitaker, and he was saying for the whole first day, just work on the drawing, like the placement of things and stuff like that. And so that's what I did. I just like worked on like placing things. So it was literally just like like a burnt umber kind of color or whatever, and just placing things, moving it, wiping it off, redoing it, moving it, changing it, like observing different things. And I looked over like around me. I got kind of absorbed in it. It was like 8 hours of that. And then to the other sides of me, everybody, they were like finished. They were like finished their paintings. Like it was like a 2 or 3 day workshop, and he was gonna have you just slow down and spend a ton of time. I loved it. But they didn't know what to do for the last 2 days. They just sat there because they and they were unhappy with their paintings. And I was like, man, you should have done what he said. You should have just looked more. But it's hard for people to do that. They're like, what do I look at? That I think that's what everybody thinks. Like, what do I do? But when you really when you understand the process and all that, it really is more what's going on in your head. Like that's the key thing, I don't know.
And for everybody in Discord, you could feel free to join in on the conversation here. This is a wonderful opportunity. I do want to mention Masay's dog right now. That is legit dog right there. That's so good.
Totally.
And,
Thanks.
for those of you that came in a little later, we are only using those particular hues, the yellow, orange, and somewhat red hue. We're only using those hues, changing the saturations, changing the value, and that's it. So this is all done with those hues. No blues, no purples, no greens. That's the challenge. And of course, if you don't want to take on that challenge and you just want to paint it straight up, you could do that as well. It's totally up to you. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it was fun. Just limited to like that upper right corner of the of the color wheel,
I know you don't even have the dog in there yet. Everything works out great in the end, we know, but it's interesting. It's interesting. You're just chilling out there. You're not concerned that we got indications of dogs in there or nothing.
I remember
Yeah.
when Missy got that dog in, though, I was like, "Oh, that looks good." I was like, that ear too looks like I could grab it, like like the inside of a dog's ear, like if you touch it, it has like that feel of like, I don't know what it is. It's like there's a different feel to the inside, of their ear or
Yeah.
whatever. And that's what I when I saw that, I was thinking, oh, that really feels like you could kind of grab that ear. And my daughter always wants to
Thanks.
touch, like she's 4, but she always wants to. She's very gentle, but she always wants to touch the dog's ears. And she also has this thing where she sees like puppies and that in their eyes, like they're so glossy and everything, that she just wants to like touch
Oh.
it, like touch it. And when she was a baby, we'd be like, don't stick your finger in
Yeah.
the dog's eye. She's just, and even stuffed animals, she'll be like touching the eye. It's really funny.
It must be
But I
like
felt
you,
like
you
that.
just want to know what it feels like.
Yeah, but I felt like that with the ear. Like it totally has that kind of like fleshy feel, and like, it's really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a weird. I don't usually paint dogs or like especially that kind of ears or like texture and shape. So thanks.
Yeah, it looks good.
As
And see,
awesome.
I think you went like more compressed than all of us, Bobby. Like you made it harder for yourself because, like, I just kind of stayed in that upper area, but I I feel like you were really limited. Like you made yourself really limited, which is hard. It's harder, I think, because then you have all these like colors that are, it makes it tougher to decide because you have like these other ends of the spectrum. Like you have like these blues and reds kind of, and you're forced to like think about that the whole time. Like it's when it's so compressed, it's tricky. It's so subtle, the difference in your sort of range that you picked.
It was crazy hard for me, anyways. I think if I was to do this again, I think I would sit there and I'd probably just want to stare at it for a good half an hour.
There you go. There you go. How awesome would that be, actually, if you were like, you're there and we could just see your
Next
circle
time,
going around?
next time, I'm just gonna stare at it for half an hour and let you go.
We all can't do it though, because if we all do it and then you do a stream, everyone's gonna be like,
Yeah.
"What's happening?" For
Is it
nothing's
broken?
happening for half an hour. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
So
Discord
funny.
people, feel free to jump in, hang out, talk in the
Oh,
conversation.
I was gonna comment on the curiosity about children.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have a 1-year nephew. I love him a lot. And because we have this new baby in the family, I was doing some research on why babies like to stick everything into their mouths
Huh.
and why they want to lick everything. And basically, babies are scientists and artists because they are studying the textures of everything with their whole body.
That's
So,
awesome.
you know how nowadays we look at the dog ear and we're like, okay, how am I going to show this texture? What are the paints I'm going to have to
Right.
use? What is the color? The baby is doing that.
That's interesting.
With his
That's
mouth.
actually really interesting, because having kids has actually made me a better artist, and I'll tell you why. Because, and it goes right along with what you were saying, because like, when you're an adult and you're walking past something that you've seen before, you've seen it a million times, right? So like there's a certain caterpillar or whatever that's around here, or there's like leaves, and the kids will stop and say, "Dad, look at this leaf. It's totally twisted up," and it's, or whatever. Or they'll say, "Look at this caterpillar." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that like a million times. That's this kind," or whatever. But when they say that and they're looking at it, and if you actually stop and say, let them stop and look at it and say, like, kind of get into their mindset, you're like, like you said, they kind of are looking at it fresh, and they're figuring it out and observing way more than I am. So I almost like take a cue from them a lot of times on how to observe properly and how to really see things for what they are. And my brother actually just came over to my house yesterday, and he was doing a magic trick for my kids, and it was a good trick. I was like, "Oh, that was good, Dan." He like flipped the card behind his hand. He was like doing this, and you couldn't see that he had the card. And my kids like all got the trick. Like they were like, "Oh, well, you flipped 2 cards over. That must be what you did." And my brother said magicians always say never do tricks for kids, because they just get it. Like they look at it differently, and they don't, So I think there is something to that. Like if you hang out around kids and you ask them like what they think about your painting, or what they think about this object, like they really are scientists, like you said, that's really interesting. I think it's been totally true in my life. I didn't know if it was just my kids or every kid,
I
but
think your kids are smart because, like, hey, between it's like between 3 to 7 year olds, I got them. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly the little tricks, the little games and such. And like a bunch of them are magic tricks,
hmm
so yeah, I wonder. When they
we
get to
kind of break
10,
everything down.
yeah,
We
when they
kind of
get to
break
10, they
everything
get
down.
too smart for me.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't really know what to do until maybe they get to like 15.
right.
Then I can
Yeah,
connect with them again.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And if they're between like newborn to about 2 years old, it's hard. 1.5. Newborn to 1.5, it's hard for me as well.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they just
Oh yeah.
react to whatever they're going to react to. And generally,
Yeah.
that's not this
Yeah.
mug here. So,
Well, I scare kids. What's so funny? It's like I'm the most fun. Like I'm like, let's go roll down the hill together. I'm like, let's go play in the mud or whatever. I'm like that kind of person, but kids are so scared of me when they first meet me. I guess I walk up and I'm like this big dude. I'm like 6'2", and I'm like, hey kid, let's have some
Yeah.
fun. Like, but they're always scared of me at first.
and you got the
They're
It must
facial
be
always,
the height.
You got the facial hair too.
yeah, they're just like, this guy is not. But then they realize, oh wait, he can help get in trouble with me, and that then they then they like it. But
Before
that's
we
funny.
get too far down the rabbit hole, can we talk a little bit about the thoughts with the painting as well?
Yeah.
Especially like John, since I'm always painting with Massey, maybe we can kind of drill you a little bit about what was going on in your mind when you're starting this painting. Like, for example, when I was starting the dog, I just was thinking, okay, I'm gonna do a silhouette. I'm gonna do something with more saturated colors, and I literally did the entire silhouette of the dog in one tone. But you did
Right.
not, you know what I mean? And you kept breaking
Right.
stuff up. So can you kind of talk about your thoughts initially
Yeah,
starting
sure.
this?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, it depends on what I'm doing. Depending that will sort of dictate the way that I want to approach it. But for this, I really wanted. It's strange because we're limiting the color, I know, but I really wanted to make color the priority, or the color choice the priority. So for me, I always like to function. It ends up doing this approach I'm about to describe always ends up making my paintings a little bit more clown-like in the beginning, because I go really intense with the colors, like what Massey was saying. But I also, one of the things I really like to think about is how one area, the color will shift from one area to the next. And so like literally 1 millimeter or whatever on here to the next, there's a little bit of a different color. So I like to observe each of those subtle differences and place them and place them. And what happens is it's kind of like a broken color sort of. That's a lot of people describe it that way. That's sort of methodology. Now some things end up being very similar, but I get a more interesting end result if I approach it that way color wise. So you can have Photoshop do that for you. Like you can have it alter the hue a little bit, and as you place a stroke, it sort of mathematically alters that hue a little bit. And that's basically what I'm doing, but I'm just doing it manually. And I feel like it ends up being a little bit more artistic than if you just do it in Photoshop. Because if you do it in Photoshop, like when you have a larger area, you'll start to see the actual pattern, unless unless you alter that percentage of variation while you're working, which would be kind of, I guess you could do it by pressure, I guess. But for me, that tends to be the way that I oil paint too. So in oil paint, like you kind of have to, color can get super dull really fast. And so I think it's probably a byproduct of that, because if I were to put down a wash of color, which I do this sometimes, but then I start working into it, it all starts to head towards a mid-range value, and also head towards a more desaturated. Like if I take all my colors on my palette, just mix them, and just take a palette knife and mix them, it'll be sort of like a warmish brown kind of a thing, like a little bit of like a darker mid-range, like warmish brown. And so so I keep that in mind. So when I'm painting, I try to keep that broken color and say, what is this color? I'm going to make it an intense version of that color, and then I'm going to stitch all these strokes together. Now the tricky part about that is, and this is the part where it's fun for me when I'm doing something like this, you have to think about the value, the proportion, and the edge at the same time that you are doing all that work with the broken color. So that's what is very taxing. Like, I'm like, what color is this? What value is this? What proportion is this? What edge is this? And then I got to just place it, you know? But I like that challenge, you know, so there's different, to me, there's different, the different approaches have different strengths. So it's going to look more unified doing what you're doing. You know, what you were doing, it's definitely going to look more unified. And actually, it's a much more efficient way to work. It's way less out of control. It's much more of a, and this is what I was saying to you guys too. Like, every time I paint with you guys, I feel like, oh man, I need more of a methodology. I need to stop being so like let's just go and you know, like you know, let's just pour out all the Legos and see what, you know. You guys have like an idea and there's a real strength in that, and so mine is lacking in that area. But I get a little bit more of an unpredictable stroke because of that. So I'll get a more unpredictable stroke. Sometimes I'll put a color down and it'll be off. It'll be different than what I wanted there, but I'm like, ooh, that works, and then I just leave it, you know. So it's like the Bob Ross.
There's definite
style,
value in both methodologies too,
right?
Because like
right.
Missy and I've been talking about like the idea of not caring about that base tone anymore. Remember, Missy? I was like, before I used to just block in the whole entire thing, which I actually did in this case, but in a bunch of the previous ones, I was thinking, nah, I'm not gonna care about it. I'm gonna abandon that color, go to another color, and if I need to get back to that color, I'll just do my best, but I don't need to eyedrop it. Let's just keep playing with the relationships, right? And I find myself a lot more just kind of looking at my colors and picking them not because of what's in the photo, but because of the relationship that it has to the color that I just painted down right beside it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And in the end, it does feel like the thing.
Right.
It does feel like the subject, which is really
Totally.
cool, because if you eyedropped it, it wouldn't match.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, dude, Bobby, you're basically, that's like my Essentials of Realism class. That's like you're
It
preaching
must
right out
have
of it, man.
dribbled in. It must have dribbled in. So I give all the credit to you.
I love it. No. I'm not the. You know what's funny is like I think I was telling you guys this while we were painting too, but I went to the museum I was trying to figure out how color relationships work and all that, what you were just talking about. I sat in front of this Sargent painting for like 2 weeks, and I, you know, looking at it, and the guard thought I was nuts, like was wondering if something was wrong with me. And then I finally was like, I got it. I know what you did. And the guard was like, this guy is for sure nuts. But I was like talking to Sargent. I was like, he probably rolled over in his grave. He just gave me a thumbs up, probably. Like, took you long enough, you know. But and then I came back like a month later after I did that. I wanted to come back and look at it again, and it was gone. And I was like, so I said, where's this painting? He goes, what painting? I said, the Sergeant. He's like, I don't know. And I said,
It's never there.
I said, where's the curator? I said, he said, let me go get her. So I went to get her. He went to get her. I said, where's the Sergeant? She said, that was on loan. I said, you're kidding me. And she started laughing because I was like, so like heartbroken. And I was like, she was smiling because she's just like, no one ever.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, how could you give that away? Like, come on.
It's good that you spent so much time on it, though.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, but I mean, it was just it's because I just knew I was missing something, so I was trying to figure out what he was doing, you know, and I could have probably found it other places, but I didn't know where to look, you know, besides that. So
I also want to kind of point out something that I noticed is like sometimes with really, really good painters, they really do not give a shit about the drawing. Like, look at your dog there. You do not give a shit about making this dog drawing look like a really good dog drawing. You know,
I know.
You know what I mean?
know.
Like, because you
No,
know
totally.
the painting is
Totally.
gonna be the end result, and you know what you're gonna be doing with the painting. But it's like you're just
Right.
drawing geometrical shapes, and you're not really caring to make it feel like a dog.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that helps, and you know this too, Bobby, is like knowing what's coming like 4 or 5 steps down the road. And so when you're doing a tutorial or something, you have to kind of explain what's happening. But when you're not doing a tutorial and you're just kind of working on it, you know what's coming down the road, so you know what you need and what you don't need, you know? And so I know that, like when I first started, I would do a really specific drawing. It looked very accurate and all this stuff. And then I'd come over it with paint and kind of mess it up, you know? And so you have to do it that way, I feel like, at first. But then after a while, you start saying to yourself, like, I don't really need, I could have done it like over top of, and then eventually you're like, do I need a drawing? I don't really need a drawing. Like, I'm just gonna, you know, put something down that it just get rolling, you know? And I have to make corrections anyways once I get the values and the colors down. Like once I start placing them, I have to make corrections anyways. So the key thing is just being aware. But you're right. I mean, but that's a weakness too, because like people will be like, sketch something cool for me, and I can kind of sketch, but not really. Like I'm not really that good. And so, but but I need to work on that. Like that side, I need to work on. You know, ideally, I'd be able to kind of jump between them. That's my goal, is to be able to jump between them. But I'm definitely more deficient on that side, making like, because my process doesn't usually look great throughout the process. So some people, their methodology, it looks really nice every step of the way. Mine, it's like I would never show, when I do a portrait commission, I would never show people halfway through.
Sketch. It's like, here you go.
No,
This is what you look
I
like.
would never.
Triangles
I
and
never
squares.
would show them. And
Yeah.
no matter, like they would like ask and ask. I'm okay. I understand. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not okay. Like you will lose faith in me if you see this. Like, and they're like, no, I want to see it. And so a couple people I've shown, and they're like, you're right. I'm worried.
You know, that's a total thing that happens in like the kind of jobs that Miss A and I do as well.
Interesting.
You know, like,
Interesting.
I have a handout for people that maybe are in that position where they don't know things about art. They don't know how to translate a sketch into the final thing. And so I have a little handout just going, okay, here's the rough sketch. Here's the finished drawing kind of thing. And then here's the super real photorealistic painting that it will end up being like. Right?
That's really smart, actually.
Yeah, so when
That's
they
really
see
smart.
that initial sketch, they're still okay. They're not going to go, we're not making a 2D cartoon, are we? We're making a live action film. Because that's the question. That's the constant concern.
Yeah. And they can't visualize it. Somebody that's not an artist, like they can't, like we could look at someone's work and be like, they're good. You know what I mean? Like Justin Sweet, it's like scribble lines, you know what I mean? We're like, he's good. Don't worry, he's good. He's got it. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, but somebody that's not an artist, you can see how they would look at it and just be like, this is not, you know, like coupled with the idea that they think like artists are unpredictable.
I've heard a super hilarious story about a studio I will not mention, but you guys could put in the comments your guesses, where an executive saw a story meeting. Okay, so there's storyboards up on the board, and we all know what storyboards look like. They're just drawings. Right. A lot of times they're just pencil drawings or just, you know, black line drawings with maybe a little bit of gray in there, maybe some color, but usually it's very, very passable if they're just line drawings, maybe a little bit of gray. So this person's looking at a board full of line drawings, these storyboards of this film, and goes, why didn't anybody tell me that we're making a 2D black and white film? When did this happen? I will not say which studio that is, but holy smokes.
That human needs creativity.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, wah, wah. You know? Somebody needs the trombone over there in the corner.
Well, yeah. I'm sure they're proficient in other things, perhaps, and this is something totally new to them.
Yeah.
But I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, I think that's a constant thing. It's like, you know, artists and non-artists like working together. It's interesting. It's you know, that's why like it's cool when you start to see them work together. Like I actually think cars are a really good example of artists, like when one's really a car is a really beautiful car but also works really well, you have like the engineering side mixing with that. And actually, like I was just saying to, SpaceX did that launch yesterday, and I was like, look at those spacesuits. I was like, those spacesuits are cool. I was like, we haven't changed the aesthetic of suits for like, really, I mean, drastically for a while. And I was like, those look so futuristic. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, some artist was like, come on, let's make them look good. We can still make them functional and make them look cool. I thought that, I don't know. I like that, to see when artists and non-artists can kind of work it out. And it takes a lot of trust though, because for the non-artists, like they're looking at it and they don't, like that person who's like, such an analytical thinker like that, like, what we're doing a black and white movie. I mean, it's somebody that's that analytical. You have, like, from their perspective, they would have to have so much trust in the artist because they can't visualize it at all. Like they can't see what it's going to look like at all, which is not where we live. Like if I said, okay, there's this slow push on a puppy or whatever, and it's raining and like the lights are, we could like describe that to each other and totally have a picture of what it is, but there's people that just, they're like, I don't, they can't see it, yeah, just like when they describe it in mathematical terms, we're like, what? At least I am. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So,
That's for sure.
Which is kind of funny because in the olden lost times, usually arts and mathematics work together.
Right.
There wasn't a clear division. Scientists and artists were like same bunch of people.
Right. I think everybody's gotten so specialized now too. Like people have become more and more specialized, I think. And so it's not only that it's just like you're an artist too. It's like you are an artist that works in watercolor and paints foxes or whatever, or something. I don't know. It's becoming really specialized. And even engineers, it's like, well, somebody's like, I don't know on a car. They're like, I just do suspension, man. I don't know anything about, the engine or whatever. It's like people, it's funny. It's becoming more and more specialized. So I think maybe that's my thought, at least.
Hey, John, I got a quick question for you from Anonymous. It says, please ask John, when is he planning on streaming again?
Soon.
Oh, yeah.
So this is literally, if you were to look around this room, there's literally nothing because all my stuff is packed. The movers are coming tomorrow. And so they have to get my stuff tomorrow, but it's going to be like, but I don't have a house in Texas yet. So I'm going to be I'll have no debt, but I'll also be homeless for probably like, a little bit under a month.
Where are you going to be living? In a hotel or something?
Oh, no, we've got family there. So that's going to be good.
Okay.
So we're staying with them, which is good, but we don't want to wear out our welcome too much. The kids are so excited because they have, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they have kids the same age as our kids, but I will be streaming again. It probably realistically will be next year, like the beginning of the year, or maybe in December. It's possible, but I'm gonna set up a whole new room for streaming and I want to get some oil painting, doing that on there, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that. I really want to hit that hard next year. So realistically, I could probably say in December, but realistically, it's probably going to be like starting in January, the new year. I'll probably just hit it hard again. So
here's another question for you, John. Since you've taken atelier classes, I'm planning to take Alex Wu's class, which is gesture drawing.
Yeah.
It's very much towards like animation, that kind of thing. But do you think I should take some atelier class first to improve my traditional skills before taking his class?
Well, it depends. I've so for me, if you look at, I'm just going to be realistic here. Okay. So like, if you look at atelier drawings, like atelier figure drawings, they look like, a lot of times they look like block people, where it's like this, and they're like, so it's very accurate and all of that, but you don't, like Solomon was like a painter that would paint like these people, they were like reaching and pulling ropes, and like it was all these cool, gestures and stuff. And so to me, I almost see them as different things. I don't know if you necessarily have to take one before the other. I think the key thing that you want to remember is that, because like classical artists will tell you, like ones that are really sort of anal, like will tell you that gesture is just, it's not useful and it's out of control or whatever. It's like, that's for animators or whatever. I don't agree with that. And I also don't. Yeah, I've heard that before. And I've also heard from the other side, like animators being like, well, the like classical guys are just stuck in the mud, and it's and all that. So, anyways, my opinion is you need both, and both are sort of a different slant, but but so yeah, so I don't know if you necessarily need to take one or the other. I think the key thing is looking for the strengths of each and understanding that, because like I take huge inspiration from animators like Glenn Keane, now I do. We were talking about that earlier. And comic artists and stuff. I will talk to them. Like one of the key things I like when I go to a Comic-Con, I ask them about how they create movement and how they create like the tension in the body and how they get those like extreme positions, like guys are, like, and how they get that emotion in there. And then they'll always ask to see my work, and they're like, what, like, especially early on, they were like, what, you're doing like cast drawings and stuff. Like they were always surprised. But to me, it was like, both of those things are so key. And I would never, you'd usually have to go to two different places to get them, so yeah, I think it's awesome that you want to take both. I think that's the key thing. But just remember to keep them separate and to practice both. And remember when you're doing gestures, accuracy needs to be there, but accuracy is not number one. That's not what you're going for. You're not going for a one-to-one, like point to point to point, indication of something. Like you're missing the point. You're missing the goal if you do that. And if you don't get an accurate drawing when you're working on a classical drawing, you're kind of missing the point too. So I don't know. That's my take on that, if that helps.
Yeah, also, I want to mention that if people do want to learn how you paint and draw, how you think, especially, it's that combination, they could definitely take your class on Schoolism, Essentials of
Absolutely.
Realism, and Understanding Textures, which is another essential of realism, really.
That's right.
On
And
schoolism.com.
yeah, and that class, like Essentials of Realism, that methodology like is really a condensed version of my atelier training. So it's that sort of slant. And I talk about that in the class, how there's different approaches. There's a construction approach, there's like a gestural approach, there's a lot of different ways to kind of capture something. But I really wanted to condense what I learned and what I thought was really valuable from that side of the sort of art equation, and condense it down to what illustrators would need, what classical people that wanted to go the atelier route, they still would find it a really good compressed version of that. So I mean, I think if you wanted that side of it, I feel really comfortable saying you should take my class, and then you'd have to practice those things that I talk about in the class a lot, but it will give you sort of the blueprint of how to think that way. And actually kind of sprinkle in a little bit more of how it relates to the illustration side, or even just like the imaginative side, I think. So
also, I wanted to mention that if you're not sure, get a Schoolism subscription, because you can access every class on Schoolism with a Schoolism subscription. You just subscribe to John's class, watch it a bit, do the assignments, do whatever. If you're gelling with it, keep going. And then if you're not, then you could try out Alex Wu's gesture drawing class. It's all on Schoolism, so you could check that out.
And actually, if you had a subscription, you could literally, what would be kind of cool is to like go back and forth, like do one lesson and then do another. That would actually be kind of interesting.
I was just going to mention that.
School.
Yeah.
Depending on the level of art you're at, if you're really, really beginning, then you probably just want to stick to one at a time.
Right. That's true.
But if you're at that college level, perhaps, or higher, then I would consider doing both of them, because both will, it's like you go to the gym and you work out groups of muscles, right? And there's certain kinds of exercises that can go together because perhaps they are kind of opposite of each other as well. Right? A lot of atelier painting and drawing, it's like you're going from the outside inwards, blocking things in. Not all of it, but there's a huge component to that.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Animation and gesture drawing is all building from the inside outwards.
That's right.
Right? So
that's right.
Really practicing both of them will actually help your art skills a lot if you're ready for it.
Totally, totally. And some people feel like when they do that, they're like, well, it's too overwhelming. Like, how can I be really good at both? I can't, you don't really have to be really good at both. Like, it's just like if you were a chef and you're like, hey, I visited India. Okay, now I visited, Vietnam. And it's like, let me take a little bit of this and a little bit, like, you'll find your own mix, like, and you'll find your own way to utilize that. Because in the type of art that you want to make, you'll take the things that are useful and use them in there, and the other stuff that's not quite as useful, it's like you just leave it, or you come back to it later or whatever. It's, people get overwhelmed when they think, well, I've got to learn everything from everybody. And now you don't need to, like, if you're a chef, you don't need to be the best Indian chef ever or the best Vietnamese chef ever. You just go learn from them, and then you just take it, and then you have this really cool fusion restaurant. And that's like our art too. I guess I'm hungry because I've been using a lot of chef. Using a lot of chef. Well, I am off sugar and stuff, Bobby, now too. So I'm probably like,
I can't tell.
I'm probably
I can't tell.
I'm probably hungry. For real.
Now, the other question that that comes to my head as we're talking about this is like, is there a specific kind of order to how we should learn things? Now, I'm sure we're all gonna say there's no specific order. There's many different ways. But say you were to, say I was to dial back the clock, 20 years, and now you pretty much have zero art skills, but you know everything that you know now except for the art skills. So perhaps how you could get back to that level. How would you go about doing it? And this is, you know how to pick up a pencil, you know how to draw a relatively straight line, and you're going to learn how to draw and paint.
That's a really, really good question. And what I would say is, does schoolism exist then? Like 20 years
No, but
ago?
what would you concentrate on first? Say schoolism
Right.
does exist. Which class would you take first? Which class
Yeah.
would you take second? And because this is a constant question
Right.
that a lot of people will ask, and I'm sure you can't give a defined answer because it also
Right.
depends on what your interests are. So I
That's
want
right.
to ask both of you kind of like what the order is that you would go in. And you could use schoolism classes as an example if you like.
Right. Do you want me to go first, Basay, or do you wanna go?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is structure and observation skills. Like if you're a very, very beginner, I think that's like, if I were to start from scratch, I think I'd want to focus on that, because art is essentially you're taking from life and representing it into your, like, you're doing it in your own way. So I think learning from that will be a good like step forward or step into the
And
art world.
what would you like? How would you be learning that? Through photos, through life models, through just like drawing people in cafes, through other art?
I think still life would be a good start because it's not moving around.
Mhm.
Really?
You can like on it. I think that's kind of the way I learned it. When I look back, it's like, because it was more like a high school assignment, and that's where I started. And if it weren't for that, then I probably wouldn't have tried to understand structure.
Can I
Like the
just
whole
stop you
concept.
right there though? Because like for me in my head, um, it seems far more effective to start from copying other people's art first, because that's taken all of this information and distilling it into something more simplified, easier to absorb perhaps.
Yeah, and that's the idea behind like the bark drawings and if everybody's ever seen those, that's the idea, is like somebody else has drawn something, you're doing something that's 2D that's already simplified. And so you're trying to, and then people are always like, oh, this is gonna be easy, and then they try it, they're like, oh man, it's really hard.
Well, and
But
the other option here is like starting from photos. Would you rather start from photos, or would you rather go to life?
I think photos, if you're starting out, photos for teaching proportion, like where things are located, like getting your eye tuned for that, it's really good. For
That's what I
value
would
and
figure.
edge,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's super good for that. Like value and edge and color, like it's good. It's good. I think it's good, but I think it's like second best to reality. But there's issues with studying from reality though. If it's something that moves, that makes it infinitely more difficult when you're first starting out. So it's funny because when I first started drawing people, everyone was like, "Man, you're such a stickler for like me getting back in the same position." I would draw like when I would see like what the triangle was for their neck and their head, like that little space. I would like draw it on my paper so I could get them right back to there because I knew like I needed that. I wasn't very good, so I needed them to get right back in the same position. My wife was like, you're so like taxing when I post for you and all that." But it's because that's really difficult. So photos, they really do, like so many artists like in the classical world frown on it, but I don't even know if they know why they frown on it. Like it does change the values and stuff, but it flattens it out a bit more, but it's fine. Like when you're first starting out, it's fine. Like so I think you're right, Bobby, and starting out that way. I have an interesting thought though about all this. Like I'm wondering, I definitely would start with observational skills. I definitely would, in that way that you're talking about, starting just, you kind of have to get, it's like doing scales on an instrument. Like you got to learn how to hold your hand on a guitar. You got to learn how to, you got to learn all those basics. But then once I had the basics, I might, if I was going back now, I'd have to think about this more, but I might actually go back and say, let me draw this person's portrait, right? And I'll draw it like observational. And then I might draw it the same thing, construction like oriented, and then do the same thing gesturally, like, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like draw it, like exaggerate it and stuff. I feel like if I were to do that, I would maybe understand it more. And it would take longer to be really good at one thing. I think like, cause you could just work the observational side or work the gestural side or work the construction side. Like, but I feel like if I were to, I think knowing what I know now, I'd rather pay up front a little bit more time and just have a more full understanding of that process. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that, but I feel like I might do all three. And that's why I was saying, like, is Schoolism around? Because if Schoolism is around, I can take that class and I can take that class and I can take that class and learn how to do each one. And when I would take those classes, I would just do what they said. But then I would start maybe applying. I don't know. It'd be an interesting way to do it. I'm not sure if I would do that. I'm having second thoughts about it, maybe, but we'll see.
Let's say,
Yeah.
did you have a step two past your starting point there before we hijack the conversation?
Yeah, sorry.
No. I think I was just initially thinking that would be my first step, but I haven't really thought about the second step.
It is interesting.
I mean,
I remember, like, in the very beginning, yeah, proportions, two-dimensional proportions, by the way. There's like a 2D way of thinking about proportions and a three-dimensional way of thinking about proportions, right? 2D way is kind of like you're thinking about things in very graphic senses of things, right? And three-dimensional, you're thinking about that thing is this far three-dimensionally from this thing, and so on and so forth. So just working on the two-dimensional proportion thing was the very first thing that I remember doing, right? And
Totally.
back then, I remember putting in a little bit of shade, but I didn't really understand what shade was. I didn't understand what value was. I called it shading.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So then after that was the shading, the lighting, the values. I remember trying that many times in the very beginning and not doing a very good job. Or if I went from copying things to creating something out of my head, it looked like two completely different people did it.
Right.
The skill level was tremendously different. I couldn't draw out of my head.
Right.
So I love what you're saying about taking perhaps one subject and representing it in many different ways.
Right.
I thought that was brilliant because um, when you're doing that, you start to look at simple objects or complex objects, whatever objects, in so many different ways, uh, and helps you, that alone helps you to expand the possibilities of everything that you're trying.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like, people would be able to combine, well, if you did that in the early stages, you'd be able to like do whatever approach suited that particular outcome or that particular situation, whatever the circumstances were, you could totally, take advantage of that. So if it's like you're drawing an apple from imagination, you're like, well, I'll probably use the construction. Like I don't have the shadow, but then you're like, but I remember the shadow shapes were kind of like this, and you'd have such a combination of, and then you'd be like, well, I want it to like get a good line, so let me just do it gesturally too, and get a little bit of that, and you'd have all that, like, and yeah, it would. I think also like a big thing that I would do, I had a lot of wasted exercises. Like I didn't quite understand what I needed to do, like what I should be practicing to get to that level. I think I would reform what I was practicing quite a bit. Like I would change that. It's a bit like an athlete, like they like if you're a soccer player, right? Well, and the issue, let's just say you didn't realize, but your issue was always your fitness level, right? You start to get tired at the end of the game, you start to do stupid stuff. So when you're first starting out, you think, well, my technique, I need to get better at ball handling because at the end of the game, I keep losing the ball or whatever. But then a coach comes in and says, no, the only reason you're losing the ball is because you're not in shape, So then all of a sudden you start running on your off days and you're fine at the end of the game, So I don't know. It's different things like that. Like artistically, I've found that there were certain things I practiced up front, and like Bridgman, copying anatomy was like what a lot of people did up front. Like I would talk to a lot of people about this, and you just copy the images from the book, right? Well, you're just learning observational drawing at that point. You're not really learning. You kind of are learning anatomy, but not really. And so, being able to draw the structure of that and flip it around and understand how it stretches and mounds up and how it overlaps.
Let me just say
that's
this, John. You remember drawing? You guys remember drawing anatomy drawings, like copying somebody else's anatomy drawings, and then going into life drawing, and you see not a defined person, right?
Exactly.
They got a little
Yes.
bit of jelly
Yes.
belly, they got a little bit of
Right.
love handles,
Right.
and
Right.
you're like, where are these muscles? What happened to
Right.
my diagram? Right? And
Right.
what you
So much
Totally.
volume.
what we were yeah, see, I knew
Yeah.
somebody would connect with this, what I'm saying here. It wasn't until I started to bring in the Bridgman anatomy books or whatever other anatomy books into my life drawing classes and starting to look at the diagram and going, okay,
Correct.
diagram, where are you on this model? And you start to really connect the dots. And
Totally.
another one is big shouts out to Werner Zimmerman, my second year life drawing teacher. He would actually draw dots on his arm and stuff to show the insertion.
I
you know,
love
things
that.
like that. So he could twist his arm and you could see it.
Dude, that's
I've heard
awesome.
other
That's a
teachers
really
doing
good
that too.
idea.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
That's a really good idea.
just
There are
doing a
some
few.
reference pictures in the internet where people draw lines on their body and then pose, so people can have like the model and the lines as reference.
That's
That's
so
cool.
helpful. Yeah, that's so
It
helpful.
is.
Yeah.
Love it. By the way, I want to get back to your dog here, John, because I was like kind of making fun of it earlier. You know, it was just a crappy
It
drawing
deserves to be
before.
made fun of early.
Hey, look at it now. Look how
Yeah.
amazing
so
that looks now.
good.
It's like the best dog there.
Mhm.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is all this talk about how would you do things again? How would you learn how to paint from nothing, you know, from beginning again? Well, I made this video yesterday where I painted the star of Queen's Gambit, and it's going to premiere tomorrow. It's going to premiere
Nice.
tomorrow, and I'm going to be talking
That's
all about...
awesome too, by the way. That looks so cool. That
Oh,
one's really
thanks.
good.
You know what? When I painted that, oh my goodness, it was so awesome because I just been doing these quick paintings with Massey. 90 minutes, including breaks, we're done. We're done. We're done. And so yesterday when I was painting this Queen's Gambit thing, I was like, oh, I don't have the limit anymore. I can
Yeah,
really make
baby.
it nice, you know? So then I spent 3 hours on it, which usually
Nice.
before it would take me maybe 4.5, 5 hours, maybe 6 hours to do it.
Right.
And it took
Yeah.
me
Right.
literally probably half the time because I've been doing these exercises with Massey as well. By
That's
the way,
awesome.
right here, I love this part too. We all started painting
Yeah.
on each other's just to finish
Yeah, we
it
started
off.
we started defacing each other's portraits there.
Now making it more awesome.
So
That's
much fun.
right.
Yeah, so these exercises, they truly, truly, truly work. Like even for old crusty professionals, you will still learn a little something and improve. You just watch.
Totally. Yeah, and don't,
Mhm.
and that's the thing is like, put yourself in the uncomfortable like situations. Not that you're gonna live there. Like you don't have to always work that way. You don't have to always make your art that way, but don't be scared to make something crappy. Like it's you might make it and it might not work out. And it's like I said, just throw it away. You got 35% of my things. Just try it, throw it away because you don't need to be a master of it to learn from it. It's when somebody, if I'm going to take like I don't really use watercolor that much or whatever. If I would take a watercolor class, I would probably not be very good at that. Like there'd be an artist that's doing all this stuff and, but you might learn some techniques there. And so I don't know, for me, it's one of those things where I'm just addicted to being uncomfortable and trying things in a way I haven't tried before. I
Well,
love it.
when you, the viewer, feels frustrated, that's what I like to do is just tell people, hey, be aware of it, acknowledge it. Think about your frustration and go, I acknowledge you frustration. My brain is really frustrated right now. That's pretty interesting. Why is it frustrated? Because it's trying to lift some big weights. And you know what happens when you constantly try to lift big weights? You grow big muscles and you get much stronger, much better.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we are looking for that frustration.
Right.
Something that
Right.
really clued in for me one time was I listened to this person going, I don't really care about the exercise I do. I just want to make sure that my heart rate is kept at a certain speed for a certain amount of time. I was like, wow, that really changes everything.
Right.
Like, that could all of a sudden change your whole entire look on working out. It's like I'm not really
Totally.
working out yet because my heart rate went down. Right? Which is
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah, right?
Yeah. I like that.
Never thought about it that way.
Yeah. There's another one where it's like, oh, well, I don't really care as much about what I eat. The guy still cares, but what he cares about is the order in which he eats things and
you were talking about
the
that. That's crazy.
proportions that he uses. Because he's like, you change the order of things, you change the proportions of things, things could go from healthy to totally deadly.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, totally.
Just with those two factors being done in the wrong way.
And with exercise too, like one of the, it's funny because like I'll my mom or whatever, my dad, like when they were working out, it was like the workouts. Well, not to mention like the hilarious clothes that everyone had back then when they were working out, but like in the 60s and 70s videos. But they would do these certain exercises and they would do like 5,000 reps over the course of like half an hour of these same like things or whatever. And now we know, varying up the exercise and like tricking your body into like not letting it get used to the whatever the exercise is actually better for you. Your body like does better. You become more athletic. You become more, you lose weight quicker, whatever you're trying to do. And it's the same with artists. I think like if you just stay doing the same thing over and over again, your brain gets used to it. You can almost do it without thinking. And that's actually why I'm sort of leaning away from the gallery system, because it kind of encourages that. It encourages the same type of painting over and over and over and over again with the same subject matter, same size, same color scheme, use the same frame and just crank it out. And I'm like, it doesn't jive with me because I'm not growing then, you know, I just start to become super stagnant. So yeah.
Well, looks like we're all done the painting. This was fantastic. What a wonderful time. I want to thank the amazing audience and the people in Discord and the crew in Discord that's helping to manage Discord. Join the LBX Discord at LBX or bit.ly/LBX Discord. And as well, you can use LBX Discord to get a 10% discount on Magma Studio Pro version. And a huge plug, because we've been talking about it all day, you might as well take advantage of it. Subscribe to Schoolism, because when you subscribe to any course on Schoolism, John's couple courses or my course, you actually now have access to all of the courses on Schoolism. It's like Netflix for artists. You could go from course to course. Over 35 courses in total on schoolism.com. The other thing I want to mention, I just mentioned this, but tomorrow we're going to be doing a premiere of a video. I will be in the chat. I will be in Discord, hang out with people in Discord as the video premieres and doing a Q&A afterwards in the Discord channel, in the LBX Discord channel. And then Thursday, we have Xuan Chan joining us, Masay and I, as we paint a landscape. Not too excited about doing a landscape because I don't really do landscapes, but I am excited about the challenge of doing a landscape. That's going to be great.
You're going to rock it, man. You'll do good.
Thank you so much.
You do more landscapes than you think, man. Like behind your creatures and stuff. Like that's, I mean,
wow,
that's a landscape, man.
All right. I want to give a big shout out to Jamie, also always helping the people in the YouTube channel. Big shout out to Jamie. Please thank Jamie for me. And the biggest shouts out go to my co-hosts here, Masay Seki and Jonathan Hardesty. Follow them on Instagram. All right. Take care, everybody. This is Bobby Chu signing off.
See you guys.